Some stories refuse to die. They lurk in the shadows of our collective memory, passed from person to person, whispered in hushed tones around campfires, and shared in the glow of computer screens late at night. Tonight, we're diving into 3 urban legends that have terrified generations and continue to haunt us to this very day. These aren't just stories, they're warnings. And by the end of this video, you might think twice before dismissing them as mere fiction. It started with a post on Reddit. A user described an encounter so unsettling that it sent chills through thousands of readers. But here's the thing about urban legends. They don't start on the internet. They've been lurking in the dark corners of our cities for far longer than we'd like to admit. Picture this. It's 2 in the morning. You're walking home alone through empty streets. The streetlights cast long shadows that seem to move with a life of their own. Everything is quiet. Too quiet. That's when you see him. At first, he's just a silhouette in the distance, a man standing under a flickering streetlight. Nothing unusual about that, right? But then you notice something off. He's not moving, not checking his phone, not waiting for anyone. He's just standing there, staring. You keep walking, trying to ignore the prickling sensation on the back of your neck. You tell yourself it's nothing, just your imagination playing tricks. But when you glance back over your shoulder, he's closer now, much closer, and you didn't hear him move. The smiling man isn't walking, he's dancing, a grotesque, jerking dance that defies the laws of physics and human movement. His limbs bend at impossible angles, his head tilts too far to one side, and through it all, he's smiling, a wide, unnatural smile that stretches from ear to ear. Witnesses describe the same horrifying details. The smile never falters, the eyes never blink, and no matter how fast you run, that dance keeps bringing him closer. Some say he feeds on fear. Others claim he's a warning of something worse to come. But everyone who's encountered him agrees on one thing. That smile. That terrible, knowing smile. It's the last thing they remember before everything goes dark. The original Reddit post went viral, but it wasn't the first sighting. Reports of the smiling man date back decades. Different cities, different countries, but always the same description, always the same dance, and always that smile. Some theories suggest he's a manifestation of our deepest fears, a physical embodiment of the paranoia we feel when walking alone at night. Others believe he's far more sinister, a predator who's learned to exploit our primal instincts, the fear of being followed, the terror of being hunted. In 2008, a woman in Seattle reported an encounter that matches the description perfectly. She was walking her dog at night when she saw a tall, thin man performing what she called a spider-like dance down the middle of the street. She ran, her dog ran, but when she looked back, he was gone, vanished into the night as if he'd never existed. Here's what makes this legend truly terrifying. It could happen to anyone. There's no ritual to protect you, no pattern to avoid. The smiling man appears randomly, targeting lone walkers in the dead of night. And once he's chosen you, there's no escape from that dance, that smile. So, the next time you're walking home alone and you see a figure in the distance, pay attention. Watch how they move. And if you see a smile that's just a little too wide, a dance that's just a little too strange, run. Don't look back. Don't try to understand. Just run. Because the smiling man isn't just an urban legend. He's a reminder that some things are better left unexplained. What happens when you push the human body beyond its limits? What horrors lurk in the depths of our minds when we're denied the one thing that keeps us sane? In the late 1940s, somewhere in the frozen wasteland of Soviet Russia, researchers decided to find out. And what they discovered was worse than anyone could have imagined. The experiment was simple in theory. Take 5 political prisoners and expose them to an experimental gas designed to eliminate the need for sleep. Keep them awake for 30 days. Observe the results. The subjects were promised freedom if they cooperated. They were promised a new life. What they got instead was a descent into madness that would become one of the most disturbing urban legends of our time. The facility was designed for isolation. A sealed chamber with only a small window for observation. Inside, 5 beds, basic necessities, and enough food to last for months. The gas was pumped in continuously, a yellowish mist that clung to every surface and filled the lungs of the subjects with each breath. For the first 5 days, everything seemed normal. The subjects talked, joked, and even seemed excited about their newfound wakefulness. They discussed what they would do with their freedom, where they would go, who they would see. The researchers took notes and congratulated themselves on a successful experiment. But on day 6, things changed. The conversations became darker, more paranoid. The subjects stopped talking to each other and began whispering to themselves. Through the observation window, researchers could see them pacing, always moving, never resting. Their eyes were wide open, staring at things that weren't there. By day 9, the screaming started, not all at once, but in waves. One subject would begin, then another would join in, and soon all 5 were shrieking in a chorus of pure terror. They screamed about things they'd done, secrets they'd kept, sins they'd committed. And then, abruptly, they stopped. The silence that followed was somehow worse than the screaming. On day 15, the researchers made a disturbing discovery. The subjects had stopped talking through the intercom. They had stopped requesting food. When the research team checked the microphones, all they could hear was a low, wet sound, like meat being torn from bone. They tried to look through the observation window, but someone had smeared something dark and thick across the glass from the inside. The lead researcher made the decision to wait. The experiment was too important to abort. They needed to reach the 30-day mark. They needed the data. So they waited and listened to those terrible wet sounds coming from inside the chamber. On day 30, they finally opened the door. What they found would haunt every member of that research team for the rest of their lives. The chamber was a nightmare made real. Blood covered every surface. Chunks of flesh were scattered across the floor. Pages from books had been stuffed into the drain to prevent the blood from escaping. 4 of the 5 subjects were still alive, barely. They had used their fingernails and teeth to remove chunks of their own flesh. Muscle and bone were exposed. One subject had torn open his own abdomen and was calmly pulling out his intestines. Another had bitten off his own fingers and was using the bones to scratch messages into the walls. When the researchers tried to remove them from the chamber, the subjects fought back with inhuman strength. They begged to be kept in the gas, pleaded to stay awake. One of them screamed a phrase that would become the legend's most famous line: "We must not sleep. We are awake. We will remain awake. This is the only way to be truly free." As they were being restrained, one subject managed to grab a researcher and pull him close. With his last breath, he whispered, "Have you forgotten so easily? We are you. We are the madness that hides in you all. We are what you hide from in your beds every night. We are what you sedate into silence and paralysis when you sleep. We have been fighting to be free from the prison of sleep our entire lives." The subjects died one by one. The experiment was classified, the research team was disbanded, and the facility was sealed forever, or so the official story goes. But here's the question that keeps this legend alive. What if it's true? What if sleep isn't just rest, but a prison? What if the nightmares we have are not figments of imagination, but glimpses of what we really are beneath the surface? What if we need sleep not to rejuvenate our bodies, but to keep something dark and terrible locked away? The Russian sleep experiment reminds us that there are limits to human curiosity. Some doors should never be opened. Some questions should never be asked. Because once you see what's behind those doors, once you know the answers to those questions, you can never unsee them. You can never unhear them. And you'll spend the rest of your nights wondering if the thing you're hiding from in sleep is really locked away, or if it's just waiting for you to close your eyes. There are places in this world that exist between worlds, doorways to dimensions we're not meant to access. And sometimes, all it takes to open those doorways is a simple game, a series of steps, a ritual performed in the most mundane of places. The elevator game is one such ritual, and those who've played it warn others to never, ever try it. The rules are deceptively simple. Find a building with at least 10 floors. Enter the elevator alone at night, then follow the sequence. 4th floor, 2nd floor, 6th floor, 2nd floor again, 10th floor, and finally 5th floor. At the 5th floor, a woman will enter. Do not look at her. Do not speak to her. She is not human, and she's there to test you. If you pass the test, if you keep your eyes forward and your mouth shut, press the button for the 1st floor. If the elevator ascends instead of descends, congratulations, you've opened the door. You're going to the 10th floor, but this isn't the 10th floor of your building. This is the 10th floor of the other world, a place where the rules of reality don't apply. The legend originated in South Korea, but quickly spread across the globe. Forums filled with stories from people claiming to have played the game. Most dismissed it as a creepypasta, an internet horror story designed to scare gullible teenagers. But then, people started documenting their attempts. Videos appeared. Some were obvious fakes, but others were harder to explain. The first sign that something's wrong is the light. Those who've successfully completed the ritual describe the 10th floor as being bathed in an unnatural red glow. The hallways stretch impossibly far in all directions. Doors that shouldn't exist line the walls, and if you listen carefully, you can hear voices calling your name from behind those doors. They tell you not to answer the voices, not to open the doors, not to look out the windows if there are any, because what you see might convince you to stay. And that's the trap. The other world wants visitors. It wants to add to its collection of lost souls. One user on a Japanese forum described her experience in chilling detail. She followed the rules perfectly. The woman entered at the 5th floor, dressed in old-fashioned clothing, her face obscured by long black hair. The elevator ascended. The 10th floor opened to a red-lit corridor that looked exactly like her building, but wrong somehow, off, twisted. She stepped out to take a picture, ignoring the rules that said to stay in the elevator. The moment her feet touched that impossible floor, she heard her mother's voice calling from down the hallway, her mother who had died 3 years earlier. The temptation to run toward that voice was overwhelming, but she remembered the warnings. She got back in the elevator. She pressed the button for the 1st floor over and over until the doors finally closed. The descent felt like it took hours. The elevator shook, the lights flickered, and she could hear scratching on the other side of the doors. Something was trying to get in. When the elevator finally stopped and the doors opened, she wasn't on the 1st floor of her building. She was in a basement she'd never seen before, a place that shouldn't exist in her building. It took her 2 hours to find her way out, 2 hours of wandering through corridors that twisted back on themselves, 2 hours of hearing footsteps behind her that stopped when she stopped. When she finally emerged into the night air, she discovered that 3 days had passed, 3 days that she couldn't account for, 3 days lost to the other world. The warnings about the elevator game are clear. If you play, you might not come back. If you do come back, you might not be alone. Those who've completed the ritual report feeling watched constantly. Shadows move in their peripheral vision, electronics malfunction, and sometimes, late at night, they hear the ding of an elevator that isn't there. But the most disturbing aspect of this legend is the woman who enters at the 5th floor. Nobody knows who she is or what she wants. Some say she's a guardian, testing those who dare to cross into the other world. Others believe she's a prisoner, trapped between dimensions, looking for someone to take her place. A few claim she's something far older and more malevolent, an entity that's learned to use our own curiosity against us. There are rules for escaping if things go wrong. If you speak to the woman, if you look at her, if you acknowledge her presence in any way, you must press the 1st floor button immediately and keep your eyes on the doors. If you make it to the other world and decide to explore, you have until the elevator doors close to get back. Once those doors close, you're trapped, forever walking those red-lit hallways, your voice joining the chorus, calling to the next victim. 3 urban legends, 3 warnings, 3 glimpses into the darkness that lurks at the edges of our reality. These stories persist because they tap into primal fears, the fear of being followed, the fear of losing our minds, the fear of the unknown. And the only way to make sure you don't become part of the legend is to heed the warnings of those who came before. Sweet dreams. And remember, some stories are told not to entertain, but to warn. The question is, will you listen?